Hey guys, tonight we travel far, really far, beyond the comforts of Roman roads and city fountains, past the last checkpoint of imperial civilization, to the grim edge of the known world. Here, the trees get taller, the winds get meaner, and the maps grow suspiciously vague. You, unlucky soul, have just arrived at the Roman frontier. You've been marched, shoved, or maybe even volunteered your way here. Either way, your new posting feels more like exile than honor. You're not stationed at a gleaming marble outpost with warm baths and amphorae of wine. No, you're here, in a cold, forgotten fort carved out of mud, rock, and sheer military willpower. The air smells like wet leather and old fire. The wooden palisades look like they were built by sleep-deprived masons with a grudge. And the moment you set foot inside the camp, there's a centurion eyeing you like fresh meat. Your boots are already soaked. You haven't even reported for duty. The road to the fort was a slushy mess, the kind of road that swallows cartwheels and enthusiasm in equal measure. You passed wreckage along the way, burnt wagons, abandoned helmets, the occasional shredded cloak still clinging to a fence post like a warning. You're not entirely sure whether you're late or just forgotten. No one greets you. A soldier points vaguely toward a gate with his chin while chewing something tough and brown that smells suspiciously like fermented goat. You step inside the walls and it hits you. This place was never meant to feel safe. The wooden watchtowers creak in the wind. The walls sag under the weight of neglect, and every man you pass looks like he either hates being alive or hasn't quite decided. There's no grand welcome. Just a short-barked command and a scratched wax tablet with your bunk assignment. You're shuffled toward a long, dim barracks hut that smells like smoke, sweat, and despair. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a wooden plank shoved between two others. A scratchy wool blanket is your only possession now, and it smells deeply lived in. You're immediately put to work. No orientation, no explanation. Just pick up that spade and start digging. A ditch, apparently, for drainage, says the man supervising. He doesn't look up once. He's missing 2 fingers on one hand and a piece of his ear. But he still shovels faster than you. The ground is frozen solid. Your hands blister, and the local wind is like being slapped by a frozen fish every 5 seconds. By sundown, your legs tremble and your fingers don't quite close anymore. Dinner, don't hold your breath. You queue for what's left. Barley gruel that's seen better centuries. And a cup of wine so sour it could double as floor cleaner. Still, you swallow it because it's warm. Kind of, and then comes night. You think maybe now you'll rest. A chance to breathe, maybe sleep. But the barracks are anything but peaceful. A man 2 bunks over coughs non-stop. Another mutters prayers in a dialect you don't recognize. Someone's sharpening a blade in the dark. Just sharpening. For fun? For something worse? You try not to think about it. You lie flat, staring at the wooden beam above you, trying to remember why you joined. Glory, money, running from something, doesn't matter now. Out here, no one cares. Not Rome, not your centurion, not even the man in the next bunk who keeps grinding his teeth like he's chewing gravel in his sleep. You think it can't get worse until the horn blows at midnight. It's your turn on watch. You're still half asleep, but the cold air wakes you up like a slap. You're posted on the east wall. It looks over a forest that doesn't end, and every tree feels like it's watching you. You hear things, cracking branches, distant howls, and what sounds like whispered Latin that no one should be speaking. The night stretches like old leather, thin, fraying, and cruel. You can't stop shaking, but you're too scared to move. If the centurion catches you dozing, there's a whip in your future. If something in the woods moves closer, maybe worse. By dawn, your hands are raw from gripping your spear too tightly. You trudge back to your bunk, but now there's a puddle under it. Something leaked. Maybe the roof. maybe the man above you. You sigh, lie down again, and try not to cry. One day in, just one, and already you feel like the world has ended. Historians still argue whether frontier soldiers truly had it worse than their urban counterparts. Sure, city legions faced riot duty and political games, but at least they had shoes that fit. Frontier troops, they had to survive geography before they even met the enemy. And here's a little tidbit you didn't ask for. Some soldiers stationed on far edges of Britannia used to smear badger fat on their skin in winter, believing it kept out both cold and ghosts. It didn't really do either, but hey, when you've got nothing, superstition starts sounding like science. You close your eyes again, knowing the next horn will blow before you get a full hour of sleep. You're not sure how many days you'll last, but one thing's becoming clear. This isn't a life. It's a sentence. It's not even dawn yet. And already your lungs sting from the cold. The horn doesn't just wake you. It yanks you out of the kind of sleep that leaves your limbs tangled and your thoughts still half in dreams. You lurch upright in the dark, knocking your elbow on the bunk post, stubbing your toe on a helmet someone left underfoot. A lovely start to a lovely day. The ground outside crunches like gravel dusted with frost. Your breath hangs in the air, visible proof that your body hasn't shut down entirely, though it feels close. The sky hasn't committed to light yet, just a pale smudge on the horizon. Like Rome forgot to paint this part of the world properly. The morning routine is as cheerful as you'd expect. Line up. Stand still and don't collapse. The centurion is already pacing like a wolf, scanning the ranks for weak knees, crooked backs, or a hint of laziness. His boots thud with a rhythm that could send men into cardiac arrest from sheer tension. You're barely standing, your belt's on sideways, and you realize you've got your tunic inside out. Too late now, don't fix it. Just pretend it's a new regional style and hope he hates fashion. And then comes the worst part, exercise. You don't just do jumping drills. You're ordered to run laps in armor, not ceremonial armor, not the light, polished gear they show in museums. This is the real stuff, rough, dented, patched with mismatched bits from fallen comrades. Your mail shirt hangs unevenly, the weight pulling on your shoulders like guilt you can't shake. Your helmet bounces with every step, smacking your skull in a dull rhythm of, "Why are you here? Why are you here?" One man vomits by lap 3, another falls, gets kicked for being slow, then dragged back to the line. Nobody helps unless ordered. You've learned quickly, compassion is not encouraged. It makes you soft. And out here, softness gets you killed. They hand out water after the drills, but it's tepid and tastes like the barrel it came from, which is to say, like oak, rust, and something faintly rat-like. Still, you gulp it down like it's nectar. Hydration is sacred, especially when you're not allowed to stop sweating. Next is weapon training. You're handed a wooden gladius and pointed toward a straw dummy shaped like an enemy. You're expected to stab until the centurion is bored, or until your arms stop functioning, whichever comes last. Push forward, twist on impact, yell when you strike. You do, not because you feel powerful, but because it keeps you from weeping. The dummy stares blankly ahead, never hitting back, yet still somehow winning. The centurion walks past you and mutters, "A Gaul would have gutted you by now." You nod. You believe him. Historians still argue whether these brutal morning drills made Roman soldiers tougher or just numb. Maybe both. The army certainly believed in discipline through repetition, like if you sweat hard enough, you'd forget you ever had feelings. Eventually, breakfast comes. You'd be excited if it didn't resemble the dinner you barely touched 6 hours ago. Barley mash again, one stale crust of bread, a date, if you're lucky, usually squished. The trick is to eat fast, but not too fast, or you'll choke and no one will help. Again, you sit cross-legged on the dirt, eating with your fingers, glancing sideways at the other soldiers. No one talks. They're too tired or too broken to waste words. One man chews with his eyes closed, like he's somewhere else, maybe remembering real bread, or a woman who once smiled at him. You don't ask. You don't interrupt. Silence here isn't awkward, it's armor, just as your stomach starts to settle. Someone screams. You turn just in time to see a soldier get hauled up by two others and dragged toward the punishment post. He's shirtless, already bruised, and flailing against the inevitable. Late to drill, someone whispers. You watch as the centurion raises a vine stick and brings it down, once, twice, again. You lose count around 10. The noise is awful. Leather on skin, skin on wood, man on ground. Everyone else stares forward, eyes fixed on nothing. You learn quickly that looking away makes you a suspect. Watching makes you a witness. Neither earns you mercy. By mid-morning, you're assigned to repair work. The outer rampart has sagged after last week's storm, and guess who gets to carry stones uphill in mud? You. Of course, you and the same men who can barely lift their own arms. The stones aren't regular. They're jagged, awkward, and designed by nature to roll directly onto your foot if you're not careful. It's not long before your back starts complaining. Your legs threaten mutiny. Blisters form inside your boots, and you try to walk funny so they don't burst. Everyone's limping, but no one says anything. A limp makes you look weak, and in this place, even the wind preys on weakness. Here's something quirky. Roman frontier soldiers often sang while they worked, not out of joy, but to drown out the endless monotony. The songs were crude, sometimes obscene, but surprisingly melodic. Today, no one sings. Maybe they've forgotten the words. Maybe they're afraid the centurion will take offense to joy itself. The sun finally climbs high enough to cast light over the fort. You wish it helped. Instead, it reveals the truth. Every surface here is coated in grime, sweat, and the kind of history that doesn't make it into textbooks. The walls are patched with mud and blood. The training posts are splintered and stained, and your own hands now bear cuts you don't remember getting. By midday, your legs are jelly. Your stomach growls. But lunch is a whisper, not a promise. Another scoop of slop, maybe a bit of cheese if the quartermaster is feeling generous. Spoiler, he isn't, as you sit to eat, trying not to fall asleep in your food. You notice a rat watching you from a nearby beam. It blinks, unafraid, probably wondering whether you'll die before it gets hungry. You make a mental note to sleep with your blanket tucked tight. Rats here don't just nibble, they commit. You make it to sunset somehow. You don't remember most of the afternoon. Just heat, sweat, bruises, and orders barked in Latin. You hurt in places you didn't know had nerve endings. Your mind keeps drifting, like a soldier trying to desert from your own skull. The final bell of the day echoes through the compound. You stagger back to the barracks. You smell worse than before. Somehow, the same men are there. No one says a word. You collapse onto your plank bed, armor half off, dirt still clinging to your face. Tomorrow will be worse. You know it. You feel it in your bones. You wake up to the smell of mildew and something vaguely metallic, probably your own blood from a blister that burst in your sleep. No time to investigate, the horn's already blown. The centurion's footsteps are thudding again, and someone just knocked over a helmet in the dark. You sit up too fast and bang your head on the beam above. Morning greetings from the Roman frontier. Your shift today starts with armor fitting, or, more accurately, armor not fitting. You were issued your kit 3 days ago, and it already feels like it's designed for someone with fewer ribs. The larica hamata, the classic Roman chainmail shirt, is theoretically flexible. In practice, it clings to your shoulders like a wet sandbag. It pinches at the neck, sags at the waist, and has the distinct odor of damp dog mixed with vinegar. Worse, your mail is clearly recycled. That means it once belonged to someone else, someone who likely died in it. There's still a dent on the left side of the chest plate, the kind that suggests something pointy hit it hard. You touch it and wonder if that soldier lived long enough to complain. Probably not. The helmet's even worse. Too big. It slides over your ears and clunks your nose every time you turn your head. The cheek guards are misaligned, so one side digs into your face and the other flaps like a sad wing. It smells like mold and panic sweat. You try to tighten the strap, but it's crusted stiff. You'd complain, but the armorer already shouted at the last guy who did, and that poor soul spent the rest of the day cleaning out the latrines with a broken spoon. And let's talk about the shield. Big, heavy, curved, and painted with a faded eagle that looks more like a drunken chicken. The leather hand grip is slick with wear, and every time you raise it, your shoulder howls. You strap it on anyway, because not carrying it gets you reported. Being reported leads to punishment duty, and you've already seen what that looks like. Historians still debate whether standard issue Roman equipment was tailored per man or mass assigned with minor adjustments. Evidence suggests that on the frontiers, where supplies were low and morale even lower, soldiers made do with whatever fit close enough not to fall off. There's no such thing as comfort out here. The armor is heavy, but what really drains you is how long you have to wear it. All day, every day, no exceptions. Training drills, watch shifts. Even while shoveling or building ditches, you're suited up like you're about to charge an enemy that never arrives. You learn to eat with one hand because the other is too numb to function. You learn to sleep with a dagger strapped to your thigh just in case. No one tells you to. You just watch the older soldiers and imitate. Here's a strange little fact you probably didn't need. Some soldiers stuffed moss inside their sandals for warmth and to soak up blood from blisters. The moss was also supposed to repel demons, according to a few outpost legends. Honestly, you're starting to believe in demons, at least ones living inside your left boot. Later in the morning, there's a ceremonial drill. You're lined up for inspection, polished shield forward, gladius sheathed, spine straight. The officer walks past, tapping the end of a vine staff in his palm, just waiting for someone to sneeze or blink wrong. He stops in front of you. You hold your breath. He squints at your mail shirt, lifts a section with the staff tip, grunts, then moves on. You don't know if that was good or bad, but you exhale anyway. Drill begins. You're instructed to advance in testudo formation, shield wall locked, knees bent, shoulders straining under the collective pressure. You feel the shield in front slam against your own, your neck tucked in, eyes squinting through the tiny slit of vision the formation allows. Then comes the command to hold. You freeze. Your thighs shake. One guy starts to tip backward, and the centurion bellows, "Dead men don't flinch." Your back screams in protest, but you grit your teeth. This isn't combat, this is training, but it feels just as lethal. One misstep and someone behind you could slam into your spine. Someone ahead could fall and snap an ankle. One shield slips and the whole wall collapses like drunken dominoes. And yes, it's happened. You saw it 2 days ago. A collapsed testudo meant 2 broken noses, a dislocated knee, and a centurion who made the unit repeat the formation for 3 hours straight as punishment. That was on a slope, in the rain. You haven't forgotten. You break for mid-morning rest. Though rest is generous. You get to remove your helmet for 10 minutes. The relief is so great. You nearly sob. The air hits your scalp like a blessing. Your hair's stuck to your forehead in greasy strands. You run your fingers through it and pull out a small beetle. He stares at you. You toss him gently away. He's probably got a better barracks. You overhear two men complaining in whispers. One mentions that his helmet once had lice. The other says his chainmail came with a cracked rib, still inside. You're not sure if that's a joke or not. No one laughs. The afternoon brings spear training. You're told to practice throwing pylums at wooden targets. Yours hits the mud, twice. The third throws sticks, but at a lazy angle. The centurion eyes you, walks over, and doesn't yell. He just stares. That's worse. The truth is, nothing here fits. Not your armor, not your role, not even your body anymore. You're changing. You already move differently. You duck instinctively. You sleep in 15-minute bursts. You flinch at shadows. The frontier does that to people. It reshapes you until you're part of the structure. Another piece of the wall, movable, replaceable, forgettable. By dusk, you're drenched in sweat again. Your tunic clings to your skin, soaked under the armor that's now chafed your ribs raw. You return to the barracks, dragging your gear behind you. There's no joy in taking it off, only dread that you'll have to put it back on tomorrow. As you lie down, the blanket itches like it's woven from regrets. You think, for a fleeting moment, about home. Whatever that was, whoever that was. And you wonder, did they know what they were sending you into? Probably not. Maybe they wouldn't care even if they did. The wind whistles through the gaps in the wood above your head, like the whole fort is exhaling in exhaustion. You close your eyes. The dent in your helmet still presses against your cheek. It'll still be there tomorrow. You're up before the horn today. Not because you're eager, but because your body has stopped trusting that it'll ever truly sleep again. You lie awake in the dark, listening to the rhythmic wheeze of a bunkmate with a possible lung infection and the soft scrape of mice under the floorboards. Then you hear it. Drip, drip. There's a leak above your bed. Again, you shift slightly. The leak follows. Perfect. When the horn finally blares, it's almost a relief. At least now your suffering has a schedule. Today, you're marching. That's the whole plan. No destination worth writing home about, just a show of force through soggy terrain, probably to remind the local tribes that Rome is still watching, and still breathing. Barely. You suit up. Adjust the same misshapen armor as always, and check your sandals. The left one's starting to peel at the sole. You tie it tighter with a scrap of cloth you tore from your old undershirt. The formation assembles in the half-light. 40 of you, standing crookedly in ranks, swaying slightly from fatigue. Your centurion barks the order, and off you go, one shuffling step at a time toward nothing in particular. The road quickly gives way to mud, and the mud becomes sludge. It's hard to say what season it is. The sky's a flat gray smear. The trees are bare but stubborn, and the ground is every possible form of wet. The march begins in silence, but that doesn't last long. Armor creaks, boots squelch, men cough and mutter. The wind doesn't howl, it judges. The miles blur. You focus on the boots in front of you. Left, right, left, right. Don't fall, don't falter. The last man to collapse got 2 lashes and a sarcastic, "Next time, die with more dignity." Your shoulder strap digs into your neck. You shift it. It digs deeper. You stop shifting. Around hour 2, someone farts loud enough to echo. You'd laugh. But you're too tired. One soldier does chuckle. He gets a glare from the officer on horseback. The officer, of course, is riding, wrapped in a wool cloak, dry. Historians still debate how far Roman soldiers typically marched each day. Some say 15 to 20 miles was standard. Others argue frontier terrain cut that down drastically. What's not debated is the weight, over 40 pounds of gear. not counting your mounting sense of regret. Eventually, you cross a stream. Stream is generous. It's a flooded ditch with leeches. You're told to wade through. One man hesitates. The centurion doesn't hesitate to shove him in. You follow, gritting your teeth. Cold water floods your boots. Something squirmy brushes your calf. You do not investigate on the other side. You keep marching. A sheep's skull lies in the grass, hollowed out, jaw still slightly ajar as if mid-scream. No one comments. Not because it's shocking, because it's boring now. You pass remnants of old villages, burnt beams, stone outlines of huts, a broken loom with moss growing through the spokes. This was someone's home once. Now it's part of the landscape of Roman reminders. This is what happens when you resist. There's no lunch break, just a brief halt to adjust gear and take swigs from leather canteens that smell like old sausage. One man has a flask of something stronger. He offers a sip. You decline. You want to stay upright. In the distance, a rider appears, not one of yours. He lingers near a hill crest, watching, not moving. The officer squints. You're told to keep walking. The rider vanishes before you reach the next bend. Was he scouting? Lost? A ghost? Hard to say, harder to care. The path now climbs. Your thighs burn. The incline is subtle, but constant, like being asked to carry a friend piggyback up a gentle staircase for 3 hours. The mud is slicker here. One man slips. He doesn't fall, but he twists something and limps the rest of the way. No one swaps packs with him. The centurion notices but says nothing. Here's a fringe little detail. Some Roman soldiers used to carry a small wax charm in their pouch, shaped like a foot. It was meant to protect them from blisters. You'd laugh if your feet didn't already feel like mashed olives inside a cheese grater. By late afternoon, the terrain opens up to moors, flat, exposed, endless. Wind cuts across like knives. You pull your cloak tighter, but it's soaked from the stream. It flaps uselessly like a wet flag. Your teeth start to chatter. You finally reach your destination, a small rise with a broken stone marker. That's it. The officer announces it with a proud gesture, as if revealing the lost city of gold. A few grumbles ripple down the line. He ignores them. The standard is planted in the mud, and for a moment, it stands awkwardly heroic. You form a perimeter, not because anyone is here to attack, but because it's procedure, while the officer scribbles something on a wax tablet. The rest of you pretend to look alert while actually doing micro stretches to keep your knees from locking. Suddenly, a shout. One of the flank scouts has found something. You shuffle toward the noise, half hoping for battle just to feel something. But it's not an enemy, just a pile of bones, mostly animal, but the skull's human, jaw missing, teeth scattered like dice in the grass. Old grave, someone says. Recent, someone else mutters. You're told to leave it. No ceremony, no marker, just bones in the dirt. As the sun begins to dip, you prepare for the return march. Your legs feel like bags of wet flour. Your hands have cramped from gripping your shield too long, but back you go. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm of misery. By the time the fort is in sight, twilight is pooling in the valleys and mist rises from the marshes like something unholy. A raven follows you for a stretch, hopping from tree to tree. You name him Marcus. He looks better fed than you. You arrive in silence, no cheers, no warm meal, just the barracks, just your bed, just the wet sock stench of 50 men sharing air. You peel off your armor slowly, each piece tugging hair, skin, or dignity. You don't even bother wiping off the grime. You lie down, boots still on, and whisper a single word, tomorrow. You're dreaming of bread, real bread, soft, warm, crusted with sesame seeds, like the kind you used to steal from the market back home. Then the horn drags you back, as it always does, not gently, not like an alarm clock, more like a war cry from a god who hates you personally. You roll out of bed, limbs stiff as wood, someone snoring still. Someone else is already gone, probably on early watch. You blink into the gloom, touch your face. Filthy. You haven't seen your reflection in days, probably for the best. Today's assignment: patrol the outer trench line. Fun. You suit up again. Same armor, same smells, same aches. Your shoulders have started forming hard knots of pain you're learning to ignore. You strap on your belt in gladius, then grab your shield. The leather binding is fraying. You told someone yesterday. They shrugged. You'll probably die before the shield does. So it's not a priority. Once outside, the weather greets you with its usual contempt. Wind, drizzle, and a chill that seems to rise from the ground itself, like the soil wants you gone. You shuffle to the line and form up with your patrol. There's 6 of you today, 3 locals conscripted into service, 2 other regulars, and you. None of you really want to talk, but it's polite to nod. The outer trench is just that, a ditch filled with stagnant water, some reeds, and a rich history of regret. You're assigned to the far west sector, right where the tree line begins. Perfect ambush country. Great. You start your slow trudge. The ground is soft and uneven. You stumble once, nearly twist your ankle, and catch yourself on your shield edge. The local to your left smirks. He doesn't speak Latin fluently, but the message in his eyes is clear. Rookie, not far along. You spot something in the mud. Bones, branches. You poke with your spear. It's a skull. Animal. You think boar or wolf. You leave it be. Better not to tug at anything that might pull back. And that's when it hits you. Out here, death comes from all sides. You expect the barbarians in the woods? Sure, but what about the trench rot, the broken foot, the poisoned stew, the guy coughing up blood in the next bunk, the cold, which creeps into your joints like a patient assassin? You keep walking, eyes darting. The mist has thickened. You hear movement, but it's a deer, startled, crashing away. Everyone tenses for a moment, then relaxes. Still, your nerves stay taut. And not just because of wild animals. Historians still argue whether Roman forts at the frontier were truly ever secure. Sure, they had ditches, ramparts, and regular patrols, but accounts from surviving letters scribbled on wax tablets and scratched on bits of wood paint a different picture. Constant anxiety, endless noise, and the feeling that one arrow could end it all, silently, without fanfare. Here's something strange for your nightmares. On the Rhine frontier, soldiers used to bury small dolls, crudely carved wooden figures under the ramparts to trap enemy spirits. The local tribes did something similar, except their dolls had teeth. Your patrol circles back after 3 hours. By then, your boots are soaked through and your thighs feel like boiled cloth. You're told to stand watch for the next rotation. No food yet, just hold the post. So you stand, and stand, and stand, watching. At one point, you hallucinate a figure in the fog. You grip your spear tighter. The figure vanishes. Your stomach growls. Your knees tremble. But you stay still. Another hour passes. Your replacement arrives late. You say nothing. Just hand over your post and limp back toward camp. The centurion barely acknowledges you as you pass. You don't expect thanks, but you do wish someone would at least say you exist. Back inside the fort, you're given a half hour to clean gear and check your sword. The gladius you've been issued is blunt again. The whetstone is cracked. You do your best. Dinner is served in battered wooden bowls. Barley mash again. but this time with bits of what might be meat. You eat it all, even the gristle. You're too tired to question anything. Afterward, a letter is read aloud. Some poor lad's family sent word. His mother died. He weeps. The rest of the room is silent, not from sympathy, from recognition. Every man here knows that grief comes late, or not at all, and that your family could die while you're busy standing in muck guarding a ditch. You head back to the barracks. Your feet are cracked and raw. You peel off your boots and wince. A toenail is black. One's gone entirely. No point complaining. There's no medic for that. Just wine and a bit of rag if you're lucky. One of the older soldiers starts humming a tune. Low, slow, probably something from his home province. It echoes faintly under the roof beams. You don't know the words, but the rhythm lulls you into stillness. And yet, before sleep, your mind churns. What's the point of this post? This ditch, this endless, damp parade of meaningless routines? They say Rome's borders are sacred, that you hold the line so the empire thrives. But the empire feels very far away, and all you see are trees, rats, and the dull, gray stare of a man who's forgotten his own name. You curl under your blanket, pull it up over your ears, and whisper to yourself that you'll last another day. Probably, it's not the horn that wakes you this time. It's the smell, something rank, sour, and so potent that it cuts through your dreams like a knife through gristle. You wake up gagging slightly, eyes still crusted shut, wondering whether something died in the barracks overnight. You lift your blanket, take a tentative sniff, and wish you hadn't. You swing your legs over the side of your bunk, boots squishing as they hit the damp floorboards. Great. The leak from the ceiling above your bunk has returned, and now your bedroll smells like a drowned goat. As you sit up, stretching your aching shoulders, the door creaks open and a soldier sticks his head in. "Latrine duty," he says. That's it. No greeting, no explanation. Just your new reality. You throw on your tunic, which is still damp from yesterday's rain, and grab your gear. Not your armor, not for this job. You won't be facing swords today. Only horrors of a different kind. Someone hands you a shovel and a rusty bucket. There's also a rag to tie around your mouth, though judging by its color and smell, it may have once been used to mop up something far worse than waste. Outside, the sun is barely rising. The air is cold enough to make your teeth ache, but the smell is worse than the chill. You follow the scent trail like a cursed bloodhound until you reach the back edge of the camp, where the latrine trench yawns like a festering wound in the earth. It's exactly what you feared, overflowing, muddy, swarming with flies, and giving off a warmth that suggests it may be trying to ferment itself into sentience. You glance at the other poor soul assigned to this task, an older soldier with hollow cheeks, hollow eyes, and a grim expression like someone who's seen too many bad things and stopped keeping count. He doesn't introduce himself. He just grunts, ties his own rag around his face, and starts shoveling. So, you do the same. There's no technique here. Just brute force and the stubborn will to get through the next minute. The smell is indescribable, like vinegar, meat, mildew, and rotting dreams. Every shovel of sludge squelches like a wet sponge soaked in nightmares. You try breathing through your mouth, but that's worse. You try humming, but it just vibrates in your skull and makes your eyes water. Eventually, you settle into a rhythm of grim acceptance. Historians still argue whether frontier forts had any real sanitation protocol or whether soldiers were just left to improvise. In the major cities, Rome had aqueducts, sewer systems, and sponge-on-a-stick hygiene. Out here, you're lucky if someone tosses you a bucket and doesn't forget you exist for 6 hours. Here's a delightful little fact that won't help your nausea. On some frontiers, soldiers smeared goat fat or pitch under their nostrils to block out the worst of the stench. Others burned pine resin or chewed bitter herbs while cleaning trenches. You, unfortunately, have nothing but a rag that smells like damp wool and old soup. The task drags on. The trench is deeper than it looks. At one point, your boot slips, and you nearly fall in. The older soldier grabs your arm just in time, but not before your shovel lands face first in the filth. You both stand there for a moment, sharing a look of mutual horror, before he mutters, "Could have been worse. Last week a man did fall in." You don't ask what happened to him. You don't want to know. When the trench is finally scraped down to something approximating not actively overflowing, you dump the last bucket far outside the camp boundary, where a shallow pit waits to swallow it. A thin mist hangs over the field, and your breath puffs out in clouds. You're covered in grime. Your arms ache, and your nostrils may never recover. But the job is done. For now, you return to the fort expecting at least a bite of food. But instead, you're redirected to another task. The pigs have broken part of the fence near the northern wall. They need it rebuilt before someone gets gored. You nod, because that's what you do now. You nod and carry on. The pig pen is a mess of mud, broken wood, and angry snorts. The pigs themselves are enormous, more boar than livestock. One eyes you with a look that says, "I dare you." You grab a hammer and some spare planks and start repairing the fence, your stomach growling louder than the animals. By the time you finish, your hands are blistered again and your back is permanently hunched. You find a place near the kitchen to sit down, hoping for a crust of bread or maybe a bit of stew. You get the former, barely. It's dry, cracked, and hard enough to cut cheese, but it's food. You chew slowly, the way you'd chew tree bark if it came seasoned. Just as you begin to relax, a new recruit shows up. He's clean, his boots shine, his hair is combed, his tunic looks like it's been ironed, and worst of all, he smiles. He introduces himself. And someone snorts. Another soldier mutters, "We'll see how long that lasts." The centurion strides past and assigns him to latrine duty for tomorrow. You nod approvingly. The gods still have a sense of justice. Later, you're finally allowed to clean up. Clean being relative. There's a barrel of water behind the barracks. You strip to your waist and splash the freezing water onto your chest. It stings. Your skin turns red, but at least the worst of the stench is gone. You scrub your hands until they're raw. Some of the grime under your nails won't budge. You'll deal with that later, or not, that night. The air is heavy with silence. No jokes, no singing, just the occasional cough, the clink of metal, and the far-off call of a bird that doesn't sound quite natural. You lie in your bunk, finally horizontal, blanket pulled tight, still shivering slightly, and still. You can smell it, the latrine. It's in your nose now, or maybe your mind. You breathe through your mouth. Try to think of better places, better times, a warm room, a loaf of bread that doesn't chip teeth, the absence of rats. You dream, fitfully, of standing in a field of flowers, only to realize the flowers are all carved from wood, and beneath them is a trench. You wake once in the night to the sound of rustling, maybe mice, maybe worse, but you don't rise. You just curl tighter and hope dawn comes soon. You start the day like always, aching, cold, and already behind. The horn sounds before your feet even touch the ground, and the moment you blink awake, the centurion is outside, yelling like he's auditioning to terrify thunder itself. You throw on your gear with movements so automatic, it's like your body no longer waits for instructions. The tunic is still damp, your belt's buckle is rusted, your sandals squelch when you step. You don't even register it anymore. It's just life now, a collection of discomforts that have fused into a single, buzzing background noise of misery. Today is payday, or so they say. You line up in the central courtyard, along with the rest of the cohort, each man clutching a token or a slip of wood with his name scratched in. The paymaster is perched behind a crude wooden table, flanked by two sour-faced scribes who look like they were born scowling. A chest sits at their feet, iron-bound, reinforced, and looking far too small to contain the hopes of 100 soldiers. When it's finally your turn, you step forward. The scribe squints at your token, makes a mark on a tablet, then gestures at the paymaster, who counts out a few coins, silver denarii, dull and greasy from too many hands. You take them, heart briefly lightening, until he opens his ledger and begins reading your deductions. Boot repair, 1 coin. Cloak replacement, 1 coin. Mess hall rations, supplemental, 1 coin. Contribution to fort's winter fund, 2 coins. Penalty for previous uniform damage, unexplained, 1 coin. What remains in your hand is a single, half-worn coin, not even enough to buy a real meal if you were in a town. Not that you're anywhere near one. You open your mouth to protest, but a sharp look from the scribe makes your throat seize up. The man in line behind you whispers, "Keep it. Better than getting reassigned to latrines and fined for insolence." Historians still dispute whether Roman soldiers were genuinely paid well, or whether most of their earnings were recycled back into the military system through mandatory expenses. Officially, Roman pay was enough to live modestly. In practice, soldiers were regularly charged for gear, food, tools, and even the rope used in their own punishments. You walk away clutching your lone denarius like it's a sacred relic. You hide it deep in your boot, beneath a scrap of cloth where it'll rub your heel raw but at least remain yours as you return to your duties. The grumbling starts, quiet, careful, but real. The older soldiers mutter about the unjust deductions. One swears his boots haven't been replaced in 3 years. Another shows you his new cloak, a patchwork of stitched rags that looks more suited to scaring crows than keeping warm. That's when you realize something deeper. The pay isn't just low, it's insulting, not because you expected riches, but because the system seems designed to remind you how replaceable you are. The money is just another tool of control. You spend the next few hours sharpening weapons with a dull whetstone that sheds more grit than it does improvement. The gladius edge is chipped, the hilt wrapped in a cord that frays every time you draw it. You mention it to your superior. He nods and tells you to requisition a new one. From your next pay, you laugh. He doesn't. Lunch is a thin lentil soup with stale barley biscuits. You break one in half, and it shatters like pottery. The lentils are soft enough, but they float in a broth so watery. You can see the bottom of your bowl. You eat anyway. You always do. Hunger doesn't allow pickiness. Here's a peculiar little tidbit. Some soldiers used to swallow small pebbles before meals. It was thought to aid digestion, especially when the food was barely more than mush. Others chewed charcoal to settle their stomachs after particularly bad rations. You consider both options while staring at your soup. Then just keep chewing. That afternoon, a visiting officer from a nearby fort arrives, dressed in rich leather, polished brass, and arrogance. He inspects the camp with a sneer, commenting on the smell, the posture of the guards, the condition of the walls. He calls one of your comrades a walking ruin. No one responds. Later, you hear that his soldiers get regular meat, daily wine, and actual leisure time. They're stationed closer to the city. They guard roads, not wilderness. One man scoffs. They're parade dogs. We're the chained wolves. You want to believe that means something. but it just feels like another way of saying you suffer more than they do, and no one cares. The wind picks up in the evening, cold, biting. It slithers under your tunic and down your spine. You wrap your cloak tighter, which does almost nothing. You step into the barracks and catch a glance at the new recruit again. He's still smiling. It's smaller now. The shine's fading. He shows you his own coin from payday. 2 denarii. "Guess I'm lucky," he says. You stare at him. "Don't lose it," you say. Voice flat. That night, one of the older veterans gives a quiet speech. Drunk on fermented apple cider someone brewed in secret. He raises a tin cup and mutters, "To Rome, may she remember us long enough to send our bones home." Everyone drinks, even those without cider, even those without hope. You crawl into bed, coin still in your boot, stomach churning from the soup. Your dreams are haunted not by battle or beasts, but by ledgers, infinite ledgers, with your name scribbled beside in debt. You barely remember falling asleep, but you sure remember waking up. A crash, sharp, sudden, violent. The kind that rips you straight from a dream and leaves your heart sprinting before your body even knows why. You sit up, instinctively reaching for your belt where your dagger should be. It's there. That's something. The commotion came from just outside the barracks. Metal clanged, a yell, then silence. You and a dozen others rush out into the gray pre-dawn chill. A torch sputters by the gate. 2 soldiers are grappling with a man, shirtless, wild-eyed, half-mad. It's Flaccus, one of yours. The one with the nervous twitch and the hollow laugh. He tried to climb the palisade. He didn't get far. The centurion arrives moments later, belt only half fastened, but his fury fully intact. He orders Flaccus seized and dragged into the center yard. No one speaks. No one helps. But no one looks away. Flaccus is babbling something about voices in the woods, about being watched, about the wall not holding. You'd laugh if it weren't so eerily close to your own thoughts lately. His feet are bleeding, his hands raw and torn from gripping the sharpened wooden stakes. The punishment is swift, tied to the post, arms raised, lashed with the flagrum, a short whip with leather thongs weighted with bits of metal. You don't count the strikes. You try not to look, but you hear everyone afterward. He's carried to the medicus, who gives him vinegar and a dirty cloth. Then he's left in the corner of the barracks to heal. Or not. There's no jail out here, just corners. And then the day begins, as if none of it happened. You're assigned back to your regular bunk room today. 8 men crammed into a single chamber with ceilings so low, a tall man can't stretch upright. Each of you gets a narrow plank bed, a straw-stuffed sack for a pillow, and a wool blanket with more holes than warmth. You share this space with every sound, smell, and sigh your comrades produce. One man snores like a drowning ox. Another chews something constantly, no one sure what. One never speaks. One speaks in his sleep, in a dialect no one understands. Probably curses. You hope they're effective. The air inside the room is thick, stale breath, damp clothes, body heat, and smoke from a brazier that barely warms your toes. At night, you hear mice skittering overhead. Once, one fell from the rafters directly onto someone's chest. That man did not sleep for a week. There's no privacy, no quiet, no distance. You dress facing a wall, trying not to bump elbows. You relieve yourself in a shared chamber pot. You eat sitting on your bed, knees pulled up to make room for your bowl. You dream with others' snores in your ears and their feet near your face. Historians still argue over just how cramped Roman barracks were. Some suggest 8 men per room was typical. Others believe frontier posts stuffed more into tighter quarters, especially during harsh winters when no one could be left outside. Either way, Personal space wasn't a concept that made it north of the Alps. And here's a little-known detail. Some soldiers reportedly carved small marks into their bedposts, not to track days, but to count nights survived. You catch yourself glancing at your own bunk. There are 4 scratches on the frame. You don't remember making them. You don't know who did. Midday brings inspection. The centurion marches in, eyes sweeping the room like a hawk with anger issues. He points at your neighbor's blanket, damp. At the pile of gear by the door, unorganized. He scowls at the corner where someone stuffed a sock into a hole in the wall. Fix it, he barks. You do, all of it, even the sock, especially the sock. You spend the afternoon sorting your belongings. That means folding your cloak, still damp, cleaning your sandals, still cracked, and rewrapping your dagger in the same strip of cloth you've used since day 1. You'd replace it. But that would cost 2 denarii, and we all know how flush with cash you are. Dinner tonight is the same. Barley mash, a splash of wine, and a sliver of something salty that might once have been fish. You eat with one hand, the other holding your bowl steady on the crooked plank that serves as your shared table. No one speaks much. The older soldier across from you is sharpening a nail on a stone. You don't ask why. Later, someone pulls out a bone dice set and invites you to play. You decline. The last time you gambled, you lost a cloak and nearly a tooth. Plus, the house always wins. And out here, the house has a sword. You sit outside for a moment before curfew, leaning against the barrack wall, watching the last of the sunlight die behind the trees. The air is clear. The stars begin to appear, faint and few, filtered through smoke and cloud. You wonder what's beyond that tree line. Another fort? A barbarian camp? Just more wilderness? You try to picture the map they showed you during your first week here. But it's all a blur. All you know is that wherever Rome ends, this place isn't far from it. As you stand to go inside, you hear a sound, rustling in the woods. It's not wind, it's not an animal, or if it is, it's big. You freeze. The hairs on your neck rise. But nothing comes. Not tonight. You return to your bed. Someone's already snoring. Another man is whispering a prayer. You lie down and stare at the beams above, wondering how many of them are hollow, rotten, or full of mice. You sleep with your dagger close and one eye half open. Just in case someone else decides to climb the wall, you've stopped expecting good news. After enough time on the frontier, you learn that the arrival of a messenger isn't something to celebrate. It rarely means reinforcements. It almost never means supplies. It means trouble, death, or worse, orders. So when a rider storms through the gates just after dawn, mud-caked, bleeding from one temple, his horse foaming and wild-eyed, you feel your stomach twist before he even opens his mouth. He doesn't speak, just dismounts, stumbles, and presses a sealed scroll into the officer's hand before collapsing face first in the mud. That silence after is like a second impact. Every man in the yard stops moving. Even the pigs near the northern pen stop their infernal snorting. You can hear the wind sliding between the wall planks. The officer barks at 2 guards to carry the rider to the medicus, then vanishes into the command hut with the scroll. The door slams shut. Lock clicks. The wait begins. For the next hour, the camp simmers in anticipation. Men sharpen weapons they don't need to sharpen. Some reorganize their gear, fold blankets, sweep already swept corners. You pretend to check your boots, but your eyes keep drifting to that door. Finally, it opens. The officer emerges with a wax tablet in hand and a face like he's been chewing vinegar for breakfast. He starts calling names. Yours is third on the list. You step forward, so do 11 others, all summoned silently to the center of the yard, where the scribe begins distributing small wooden parcels, letters, folded thin slats of wood or wax tablets, wrapped in twine, brittle from travel. You're handed one. The seal is broken from damp, but the writing is intact. It's from your brother. You find a corner behind the granary and sit with your knees pulled to your chest, the letter balanced on your thighs. The handwriting is familiar, though more frantic than you remember. He writes that the summer was dry, the olives turned bitter, and the barley withered in the soil. Your father's cough has worsened. Your mother's ankle, broken during the last winter, hasn't healed. The goats are dying. The well collapsed. The neighbors won't lend anymore. If you can send anything, the letter ends. We'll make it last. Even 1 coin would help. You stare at those words for a long time. You fold the letter neatly and tuck it under your belt. Then you sit there, unmoving, watching dust drift through the cold morning air. You have 1 coin. 1. It's hidden in your boot, pressed between a strip of cloth and a hole in your sock. You've had it for 3 weeks now. You've considered spending it on a whetstone, on better boots, on wine, but you haven't. Now, you consider mailing it home. Except how? How do you send a coin across provinces, through rogue patrols and bribed couriers, across hundreds of miles of thieves, mudslides, and unreliable maps? Even if it did reach your brother, what would it buy? Half a chicken? A promise that doesn't hatch? You close your eyes and try to remember what your mother's voice sounded like. It's already fading, back in the yard. The other letter receivers are quiet too. One man squints at his, frowns, and tucks it into his shirt. Another wipes his eyes on his forearm. One, Vitterius, the big Gaul, just stares at the wax slat for 20 minutes without even opening it. Then he burns it. No one asks. Historians still debate how consistent the Roman mail system truly was. Yes, there were organized couriers, official routes, messengers on horseback, but those were for the elite, the officers, the Senate. Regular soldiers depended on traveling traders, bribed riders, and luck. And even then, the messages that did arrive were often weeks or months out of date, echoes of crises already faded or lives already lost. You don't reply to the letter, not because you don't want to, but because there's nothing you can say that would be honest and comforting at the same time. Instead, you're sent to the wall. You and 3 others take up midday watch along the west rampart. It's quiet out there, too quiet. The forest beyond the perimeter is a dense tangle of gray trees and hanging moss. You've stared at that same horizon for months now, and still it unsettles you. You scan the tree line, then glance back into the yard. The new recruit, Servius, is trying to polish his helmet. He's still got the kind of optimism that makes other soldiers flinch. Give it a month, then the news comes. One of the watchmen didn't report for shift change. It's a small thing at first, just a name not responded to. A bunk still made. A sword still on the rack. The officer orders a sweep. No one really expects anything to come of it. Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he went out to piss and forgot the time. But he's gone. His gear, his sandals, his water pouch, all missing. No sign of struggle, no witnesses. Another deserter? Maybe. You remember the last one, quiet guy from Carthage. Vanished during night watch. Everyone said he slipped away under moonlight and stole a horse. But that horse was found the next day, tied to a tree, untouched, reins wrapped like someone meant to come back. No one did. The centurion announces the man's name will be removed from the register. A blank space will be left in the bunk ledger. That's how the army forgets you. With paperwork. Later, during supper, someone tries to joke that the forest eats the ones who think too much, that it watches from the mist. No one laughs, not even the drunkest of the bunch. You remember something strange a veteran once told you during your first week. about a grove beyond the northern path, where birds don't sing, and every seventh man sent there for firewood goes missing. You laugh then. You don't laugh now. Here's a fringe belief. Some soldiers on the Rhine frontier swore the trees spoke Latin when the wind blew just right. Others claim to have seen figures, tall, pale, featureless, watching from between the trunks, never moving, never blinking. You dismiss it. But then you remember that time last week, alone on patrol, hearing a whistle that no one else claimed to hear. You shake your head and finish your stew. It tastes like wood and regret. That night, you lie on your plank bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if your brother is staring at his own roof back home, hungry, cold, and waiting for a coin that will never come. The man in the bunk beside you coughs in his sleep. Someone down the line mutters a prayer. Someone else snores with the rhythm of a man being strangled by fate. And you keep one hand on the hilt of your dagger just in case something comes back from that forest. The goat is on fire. Not metaphorically, not in some poetic, symbolic, the harvest has failed kind of way. No, there is a literal goat, tied to a wooden stake in the center of the parade yard, actively and enthusiastically burning. Its hooves curl. Its eyes have long since boiled away. A plume of greasy smoke rises into the gray morning sky, curling above the half-rotted watchtower like the world's least appetizing incense. A circle of men in uneven formation chant softly. Bad Latin. Worse rhythm, and one of them keeps missing his cue. Muttering apologies between each awkward verse. You are one of them. It's ritual day. The dies Votorum, the day of vows. Once a year, sometimes more if things get particularly dire, you and your fellow frontier skeletons are expected to gather, sing badly, wave weapons skyward, and offer something, anything, to whatever gods haven't abandoned this miserable corner of the empire yet. The camp's priest stands at the edge of the fire pit, arms raised, mouth open, eyes glazed. His robes are goatskin and soot, and his beard hasn't been trimmed in what you estimate to be at least 3 major festivals. He invokes Mars, of course, and Jupiter, with the sort of reverence that suggests fear rather than love. But then he keeps going. Mithras, Sol Invictus, Diana, a whisper of Pluto, a few gods you've never heard of. One he calls the Watcher of Tunnels. Another he simply calls the One Beneath. You glance at the man next to you. He shrugs. Just go with it. This isn't Rome. It isn't even Gaul out here. The gods are more desperate, more local, and much less organized. Historians still debate whether Rome truly enforced a strict religious code in its outposts. The reality seems to be that as long as you lit a fire, muttered the right names, and didn't openly offend anyone too powerful, you could get away with a lot. Soldiers mixed gods freely, official Roman deities with local tribal spirits, old Etruscan figures with vague river sprites. Religion became less theology and more insurance. After the burning, the priest steps forward and begins the ritual of blessing the weapons, not with incense or anointing oil, with blood. He dips a crude bronze ladle into a clay pot of goat blood, still steaming, and begins flicking it onto swords, shields, helmets, and boots. You hold out your gladius. It's already chipped. One of the notches from 2 months ago is starting to spread like a crack in bad pottery. The priest slaps a streak of red across the blade and nods solemnly. That means it's good now. Holy. You guess? One of the men coughs as a gob of blood lands directly on his face. The priest doesn't notice. The man wipes it away without comment. Then come the offerings. Each soldier is expected to give something, doesn't matter what. The gods accept anything of value: coin, food, a broken ring, a lucky charm. One man gives a strip of leather, another offers a crushed seashell from his home province. One of the auxiliaries drops in a bird skull on a string. He says it keeps away night demons. No one laughs. You hesitate. Then pull out a knotted cord from your pack, a bit of frayed fabric you'd been using to keep your belt from sliding loose. Not much, but it's yours. You toss it into the bowl and step back. The flames crackle. The priest shouts a final verse, something about blood and silence and iron teeth, and just like that, it's over. Everyone disperses. You'd think the burning of a goat in the center of a military installation would be the sort of thing you'd remember forever. But in the frontier, it barely ranks. By the time you return to the barracks, the fire's already been put out, the ashes scraped into a ditch, the smell absorbed into your clothes like everything else. You sit on your bunk and peel off your boots. Your toes are damp again. You think one of your nails is turning black, maybe from the cold, maybe from yesterday's marching. You don't remember. The goat's smoke still clings to your tunic. That afternoon, you're assigned to the Western Wall Patrol along the timber rampart that sags just enough to make you nervous. You, Crispus, the quiet one missing 3 fingers, and Publius, the one who chews on olive pits like it's a hobby, march single file along the outer trench. The forest looms just beyond. You try not to look into it. You've heard too many stories. Crispus breaks the silence. You believe any of that? You glance at him. The goat? He shakes his head. The priest, the gods, the blood blessings, all of it. You consider it. I believe the priest is mad. I believe the goat is dead. As for the gods, I think they're somewhere warm, laughing at us. Crispus chuckles. It's the most sound you've heard from him all week. He tells you he used to pray to Mithras, said the rituals made sense, structure, discipline, a god who rewarded loyalty. Then a friend of his took a spear through the neck mid-prayer. He stopped after that. Publius spits an olive pit into the dirt. I pray to my boots, he mutters. They're the only thing keeping me alive. You keep walking. Here's a strange little detail from an old centurion's diary you once helped transcribe in camp. Some frontier soldiers buried tiny figurines, carved from bone or wood, beneath their beds. Little warriors, swords raised, faces painted with ash, not for protection, not for comfort, but to remind them what they were becoming. The diary ended abruptly, just a blank page. You wonder what became of him. As dusk falls, the wind picks up. You shiver, not from the cold this time, but from the quiet. The woods are silent tonight. Back in camp, the mood is strange, hollow, like the ritual took something with it when it ended. A few soldiers sit in silence. One man whispers to a charm around his neck. Another polishes his sword, muttering prayers under his breath. That night, you lie in your bunk, unable to sleep. Your hand rests on the hilt of your dagger. The blood on your armor has dried in strange patterns. You stare at the ceiling and wonder if the gods really are watching. What exactly did you just offer them? And what, if anything, do they plan to give in return? The first thing you feel is wet. You don't know what time it is. You just know that when you open your eyes, your blanket is soaked through, your tunic clings to your skin, and your toes are floating in a shallow puddle of icy water, pooling across the barracks floor. It rained again. You sit up slowly. The wooden ceiling above you is leaking from 4 different spots now. One of them drips directly onto your sleeping neighbor's forehead, which explains the muffled curses coming from under his blanket. You roll your feet over the edge of your plank bed and feel them squish into your sandals, still damp from yesterday's march. Wonderful. By the time the horn blows, half the barracks is already up and muttering. One man's boots are so wet he's trying to dry them over the brazier using a stick and a prayer. Another is wringing out his socks with the solemnity of a funeral rite. No one's warm, no one's dry, and the fire's gone out again. You step outside and immediately regret it. The rain hasn't stopped, it's just pretending to, hiding in the air like a damp secret. The sky is a lid of unbroken gray, and the wind cuts sideways, slapping water into your face like it's taking something personally. The mud under your feet is the kind that tries to eat your sandals with every step, making a sloppy suction noise as you drag yourself toward the morning lineup. You blink water from your eyes. Everything hurts. Your back, your legs, even your teeth. Oddly, welcome to weather on the Roman frontier. It doesn't matter where your fort is, Britannia, Dacia, the Rhine, whatever climate you're in. It's the wrong one. Too cold, too dry, too hot, too wet, sometimes. All four in one day. Today, it's cold and wet. Yesterday, it was hot and wet. Tomorrow, probably just wet. You stand in formation as the centurion paces. His cloak is soaked, his helmet drips, and his temper is somewhere below freezing. He doesn't speak, just glares, then barks the first orders. Marching. Of course. You groan inwardly. So do the others. Marching in the rain is an art form you never wanted to master. Your gear triples in weight. Your cloak clings to your legs like seaweed, and your breath fogs up inside your helmet, blinding you with every exhale. The wind whistles through the eye slits and makes your ears ache. By mile 3, your thighs are chafed. Your shoulder strap has rubbed a raw patch into your collarbone, and your right boot squelches with a rhythm so steady it might as well be part of the marching cadence. Historians often romanticize Roman endurance. Yes, legionaries could march 20 miles a day. Yes, they built roads, forts, siege engines along the way. But those texts rarely mention trench foot, or skin rot, or the fact that cold water, when trapped under armor, feels like punishment invented by someone who hated joy. There's a saying in your unit: the rain is Rome's way of making you remember who's in charge. Someone else claims Jupiter has a bladder problem. You're more inclined to believe the latter. You pass a dead tree leaning over the road like it's trying to escape. A bird screeches somewhere, then silence. Even the wildlife has the sense to stay indoors. You reach a checkpoint outpost around noon. Just a half-collapsed hut and 2 guards who look like they've been pickled in rainwater. One of them waves you through. The other asks if anyone brought extra socks. Everyone laughs, dryly. You eat standing up. Your barley ration has turned into something more like paste. The dried fruit is missing. No one mentions it. But everyone looks at the quartermaster like he might be the first one eaten if supplies run out. You squat near a ditch and watch steam rise off your legs. Your knees feel like gravel wrapped in string. You haven't felt your toes since breakfast. Then comes the thunder. It starts distant, just a low, echoing growl. Then it builds, rolling across the sky like a god dragging a chariot full of regrets. Lightning flashes once, twice, close, too close. The officer calls for a return to camp. You're relieved. Until you remember that the road back has no shelter, just forest, swamp, and 20 increasingly miserable soldiers. The rain intensifies. You march anyway. By the time you return to the fort, you are soaked through 5 layers. Your undergarments squish audibly. Your pack leaks. Your scrolls are mush. You've bled through the cloth on your heel, and your teeth are now chattering to the beat of your heartbeat. The guards at the gate let you in with the kind of pity usually reserved for injured livestock. Back inside, the barracks are worse. The roof's collapsed in one corner. Someone is trying to mop with a rag tied to a stick. Another man has stripped naked and is huddled under a blanket, whispering threats at anyone who gets too close. You remove your gear with the delicacy of someone peeling skin from fruit. Every buckle is stuck. Every strap resists. Your fingers barely work. Eventually, you just lie back in wet clothes, staring at the ceiling like it owes you money. Here's a fringe little tidbit from a legionary journal. Some soldiers believed soaking wet gear cleansed the soul. That water was the god's way of washing off sins and weakness. That same soldier died from pneumonia a week later. That night, the wind howls so loudly it rattles the beams above your bunk. The walls creak. Water drips in rhythmic patterns from every leak. You wrap your blanket tighter, but it's still damp. Your boots sit beside your bed, steaming faintly. And still no fire. You lie awake, shivering, trying to remember what warmth felt like. A sunlit hill, a hot bath, a woman's touch. You can't. It's all mud and fog and the unrelenting, eternal wet. The rain doesn't lull you to sleep, it mocks you. And sometime around midnight, you stop waiting for the sky to clear. You just listen to it fall and fall and fall. You wake up to something wriggling in your mouth. Instinct kicks in first. You spit, lurch, slap at your lips before your brain catches up. Whatever it was, small, soft-bodied, maybe a worm, hits the barrack floor with a wet plop. You don't look. You don't want to know. You wipe your tongue on your sleeve like you're trying to scrape away the entire morning. Welcome to breakfast. You sit up, blinking away sleep and regret. Your stomach gurgles, but you're not sure if it's from hunger or protest. Probably both. Your last meal barely qualified as food, a grayish mash that claimed to be barley, flecked with black specks you convinced yourself were pepper. They weren't. Today is ration day. Supposedly, the quartermaster, a man with the personality of spoiled cabbage, calls everyone to the mess yard. A queue forms, mud-caked soldiers, tunics damp, eyes sunken, hands already outstretched. The rations are the same. Grain, more grain, and a sticky cube of what might have once been meat. There's also a pitcher of thin, sour wine passed down the line. One sip each. It tastes like old vinegar and despair. You sit on a stone and poke your mash with a stick. A beetle crawls out. You nudge it aside and keep eating. This is just food now. Historians like to describe the Roman diet as varied and surprisingly nutritious. And perhaps that's true in Rome itself, or in a comfortable provincial town. There, a soldier might enjoy olive oil, lentils, even fresh bread and honey. But out here, on the edge of civilization, your meal plan is simple. Barley, salted gruel, weevils optional. You chew mechanically, trying to imagine flavor. You fail. Later that morning, you're assigned to kitchen duty, not cooking. Don't flatter yourself. You're hauling sacks of grain from the storage room to the prep station, one at a time, across a slippery courtyard made worse by last night's rain. The sacks are heavy, wet, and smell like moldy hay. One splits halfway through the trip, spilling grain across the mud. The cook yells, "You apologize." He gives you a slap with a wooden spoon for your trouble. You keep walking. By noon, your arms are numb. Your shoulders ache like someone drove a nail into each one. But you don't stop. If you do, someone else picks up your slack, and you've seen how that ends. Punishment is always collective out here. The mess hall is a makeshift structure, wooden beams, patched canvas roof, no floor inside. A massive iron pot bubbles over a low fire. Today's lunch, pulse, the standard barley porridge. Again, you stir the pot with a long stick. It resists. The surface film is thick, rubbery, and smells faintly of burned onions and something unplaceable. You break it, stir, and try not to think about it. A centurion wanders by and tastes a ladleful. He winces but nods. That's approval. Apparently, once the porridge is portioned into bowls, you sit on an overturned crate to eat. The man next to you is fishing something out of his mash. A bone fragment. Maybe. He pockets it like it might be useful later. You ask, "You saving that?" He shrugs. "To sharpen. Maybe make a charm." Of course, here's something delightfully fringe. On the Danube frontier. Some soldiers wore tiny bones as necklaces, mouse femurs, bird toes, even fish spines, believing they warded off worms. Others rubbed garlic into their skin before meals to repel parasites. You're not sure if it worked, but they definitely repelled conversation. You're not even halfway through your bowl when someone starts vomiting. A young auxiliary, barely grown into his armor, keels over and spills his stomach onto the dirt. Red chunks, foamy bile. The cook rushes over and snatches the bowl he'd been using, sniffs it, then frowns and mutters, "Not the food, weak stomach." Everyone nods. No one stops eating. You keep your eyes on your own portion and chew slower. That afternoon, you're assigned latrine duty again. Not cleaning this time, guarding. Someone's been sneaking out at night and using the wrong pit, too close to the wall. It's attracting vermin. A rat the size of a child's arm was spotted near the Medicus station yesterday, so now you're on watch. In the rain, next to a trench full of soldier waste, making sure no one relieves themselves in the wrong place. There's a word for this life. You haven't found it yet, but it probably involves mud and shame to pass the time. You carve a small line into the beam near the trench. Your third tally this week, you don't know what you're counting. Days survived, duties endured. You just keep adding as dusk falls. You spot a pair of eyes glinting near the storage shed, low to the ground. Not a person, a dog, maybe, or something else. It vanishes before you can call out. You tell the officer, he says, "It's just the wind." Of course it is. Dinner is more of the same. The cook throws in a new ingredient this time. Leeks. You think, or maybe it's just old onion. Either way, the smell fills the barracks. You pretend it's stew. You almost believe it. That night, you lie in your bunk and feel your stomach twist. Maybe it's the food. Maybe it's something in the food. You roll onto your side, clutching your belly, and mutter a prayer to a God you don't believe in anymore. And still, you know you'll eat again tomorrow. You always do. It starts with shouting, not your usual barrack scuffle or a centurion berating a recruit for falling asleep on watch. This shouting comes from inside the command hut, the kind that starts with Latin but quickly abandons grammar in favor of volume. You pause mid-buckle, standing just outside the armory, squinting in the direction of the door like maybe, just maybe, this is the argument that ends the empire once and for all. It won't be. Of course, it never is. But it's loud and angry, and you recognize one of the voices. It belongs to your commanding officer. The other, you learn quickly, belongs to a visiting decurion from the next fort over, one with newer boots, a shinier belt buckle, and that unmistakable air of someone who's recently seen a hot bath. The argument spills outside moments later, both men red-faced and waving wax tablets like they're about to duel with bureaucracy. You hear phrases like incompetent routing, incorrect perimeter logic, and whose bright idea was it to assign 60 men to a swamp? And that's when you know things are about to get worse. Later that morning, the news is official. Your patrol zone is changing. You're being reassigned to a new stretch of territory, one known mostly for wolves, fog, and the occasional pile of bones that may or may not be ancient. The reasoning? A senator in Rome redrew the regional command lines based on updated strategic assessments. Translation: he spilled wine on a map, smeared the border, and liked the new shape better. Historians still insist that Rome's logistical infrastructure was efficient, impressively so. Roads, outposts, supply chains, taxation, sure, the bones of the system were sound. But out here, on the very edge, when an ivory tower decision echoes down into the mud-soaked world of regular soldiers, it lands like a rock through a leaky roof. You now belong to a different command region. Your fort is the same, Your face is the same. Your boots are still falling apart, but everything else has shifted. New duty rotations, new jurisdiction, new enemies, new responsibilities, zero new supplies. The centurion gathers everyone in the main yard, reads the orders aloud like he's trying not to bite through the tablet. Every sentence drips with sarcasm. By the time he gets to enhanced operational effectiveness, a few soldiers actually snort. Then he announces the worst part. Your unit is now responsible for maintaining a double-length border with half the manpower. Patrols will increase. Rest days will not. No one speaks. There's nothing to say. You spend the rest of the day repacking gear that never really got unpacked in the first place. The reallocation also means you have to shift the latrine trench, because apparently the previous one now sits just outside the newly designated boundary. You dig through soggy earth, silently cursing the concept of empire later. The supply officer comes around with additional provisions for your extended patrols. You're given half a sack of barley, a wheel of cheese that's already sweating despite the cold, and a pouch of what turns out to be onions, small, shriveled, and angry-looking. There is no meat, no wine, no extra socks, just onions. You try to trade them for anything at all. The man beside you offers a dead mouse and a broken buckle in return. You hesitate longer than you're proud of. After that, you're called to a strategy briefing, which consists of a stick drawing lines in the mud, while an officer says things like, "If they come from here, we run that way, and don't die in the ditch." The map is incomprehensible, and the stick breaks halfway through. You return to your barracks at dusk, wet, hungry, and unsure whether the new sector includes that cursed clearing where people keep accidentally seeing glowing lights at night. No one confirms. No one denies it. One man simply crosses himself and walks away. Inside, the mood is brittle. The new recruit, Lucius, who still says "sir" unironically, is sitting on his bunk writing a letter home. He asks if it's true the border moved because a senator got lost during a hunting trip and blamed the map. You say nothing, just nod slowly. He looks horrified. Good. Let it soak in. Over the campfire that night, Fabius, the unit's unofficial storyteller, shares a tale from the last time this happened. Back in 127, he begins, poking the flames with a stick. They moved us north by 7 miles. Didn't tell the tribes. Didn't tell us. First night, 3 men disappeared. Next day, we found their shields stacked neatly in a tree. Someone asks if that's true. Fabius smiles. Does it matter? Here's something fringe but true. Archaeologists in Dacia uncovered a carved stone marker from a Roman military zone. The inscription, barely legible, read, "Don't change the line. The gods don't like it." No one knows who wrote it or whether the gods in question were Roman. The night drags. You sharpen your gladius even though you sharpened it yesterday. You check your pack again even though it's the same pack you've carried for months. You lie in your bunk, staring at the ceiling, wondering if your family will even know where to send letters now, or if it matters. Outside, the wind shifts, carries the scent of damp earth, oil, and distant smoke. Somewhere out in the woods, an animal howls. You're not sure if it's a wolf, a trick of the wind, or something worse. You close your eyes, mutter a half-formed prayer to no god in particular, and brace yourself for tomorrow's march into land that technically became Roman 4 days ago, but has never once agreed. Someone is missing again. It doesn't take long to notice. You're not even fully awake when the shape of the barracks feels incomplete. The row of bunks looks fine at first glance, but your eyes catch it, the subtle wrongness of one empty bed that shouldn't be. You sit up slowly, There's a blanket, carefully folded, a cup of rainwater left on a stool, boots, gone, pack, gone. And something about the quiet around that empty space makes your skin tighten. You scan the room. No one is reacting, but everyone has seen it. It's the 3rd this month, no shouts, no alarms, just silence and subtraction. A man disappears and the camp absorbs it like a sponge. And you all learn to carry on as if it didn't happen. Your centurion steps in, counts silently, and pauses only half a beat when he sees the empty space. He makes a mark on his wax tablet, one quick press of the stylus, and walks out without comment. That's all the ceremony a disappearance gets out here. There's always debate, quietly, in whispers behind the latrines or while chewing gruel no one wants to taste. Was it desertion? Was he taken? Did he wander off during watch? One man swears he saw tracks leading away from the northern wall. Another says no. The footprints faced inward, like someone or something came to get him. But no one investigates. No one is allowed to investigate. Out here, gone means gone, and talking too much about it earns you double duty and a long look from command. Still, you feel that familiar nausea creeping up again, that quiet, sour twist in your gut, not quite fear, not quite guilt, just that tightening knowledge. It could have been you, every single night. It still could be. Historians often refer to desertion as a manageable threat in the Roman army, especially in frontier stations. That's a polite phrase. What they don't mention is how many of those men weren't running from war or hardship, but from the creeping certainty that this land, these woods, this post had begun to change them. You throw on your gear. Today you're reassigned to night watch. Again, perfect. You spend the morning on a half-hearted patrol near the edge of the newly reassigned border, still soggy from last week's storm. The ground soft enough to swallow a man whole if he steps too hard in the wrong place. A sentry post nearby collapsed last night. No one was on it. Thank Jupiter. But now it's your job to drag fresh logs out from the storage pit and rebuild part of the platform. By midday, your shoulders feel like they've been nailed into place. Your palms are blistered. You haven't spoken in hours. No one talks much anymore. Words feel risky. That evening, just before the shift change, you sit on an overturned water barrel and watch the sky melt into bruised gray. One of the older soldiers, Sylvanus, scar down his cheek and 2 teeth missing, sits beside you, gnawing on a dried fig and muttering something that might be a prayer or just a habit. He doesn't look at you when he speaks. They never go far, he says. You wait. The ones who vanish, their tracks always fade after 50 paces. No blood, no signs of struggle, just silence. You say nothing. He spits out a pit and stares into the dirt. There's something in those trees, he adds. Been here longer than us. Doesn't care about sides. Doesn't need to. He stands and walks away before you can ask more, and just like that, it's time for your shift. Night watch. 3rd rotation. You climb the ladder to the northeast platform, your armor cold against your ribs, your hands still stinging from the splinters of the morning. The post creaks with every step. The torch beside you is already half spent, flickering like it knows something you don't. Your partner tonight is Gaius, the kind who talks too much during the day, but says nothing at night. He nods once when you reach the top, then turns away and peers into the black. You do the same. Out here, the forest isn't a place. It's a presence. It breathes, and you can feel it. You listen for sound, any sound, a twig crack, an owl, even the wind, nothing. You want to hear something, anything, to prove the world's still moving. But the silence is thick, smothering. You start counting heartbeats just to mark the time. Then you feel it, that strange weight, like someone is watching or something. You don't say anything, but your hand drifts slowly to the dagger strapped across your thigh. Gaius shifts beside you. His head tilts, ever so slightly, toward a dark patch between two trees. You look. A shape? No, just shadow. Or was it? You blink. Gone. Neither of you mentions it. You stand there, still as statues. For another hour. The torch burns low. The cold seeps into your bones, and eventually, the horn sounds. End of shift. You climb down without speaking. Back in the barracks. Everyone's asleep, or pretending. You peel off your gear, fingers trembling. Your chest is tight, your mouth dry. You lie in bed but don't close your eyes. And that's when you hear it. A footstep. Just one, just outside the wall. Then another, but lighter. You hold your breath. You count to 10. Then it's gone. No shout, no alarm. Morning comes. You wake to the same cold light, the same creaking beams, and another empty bed. No one asks who this time. You already know. The silence becomes the loudest part of your day. At first, you don't notice it. You think it's just another slow morning, but then you realize there's no snoring, no boots thudding, no curses over cold water or dry socks. Just breathing. Heavy, uneven, tired. The barracks feels thinner, somehow, like every man missing leaves not just a gap in space, but in sound. And lately, the gaps are starting to add up. You swing your legs over the edge of your bunk, toes landing on the icy floor. The chill punches straight through the soles of your sandals, climbs up your spine, and settles in the back of your skull like a headache that hasn't learned manners. You blink against the weak morning light leaking through the cracks in the wood. The ceiling still weeps from last night's fog. There's movement, barely. Men shift, stretch, groan, but no one speaks. You count heads. One short again. That's 4 now, gone without a trace. No blood, no notes, just vanished. You watch the centurion count in silence. Lips pressed so thin they nearly disappear. He doesn't announce anything, doesn't assign a search, just records the absence with a scratch of his stylus. He walks out, and the silence swells in behind him. Your new assignment is pinned to the duty post just after breakfast. 3-day patrol, long route, deep into the new border zone. The one no one volunteers for, the one with too many trees, too few landmarks, and a reputation for being unlucky. You're not surprised. You stopped being surprised 2 disappearances ago. You pack light, bedroll, 2 days' worth of barley cakes, dried onions, a small leather flask, a whetstone, a deck of worn playing tiles, and a pouch of salt you've convinced yourself is for flavor, not superstition. The 6-man team is quiet as you gear up. No introductions, just nods. Crispus is there, thin, hunched, eyes ringed in gray. Lucius, too, the newest, still calling everyone sir and wearing his armor like it's been glued on. Fabius, of course, rounds out the group. His left ear is missing. His belt holds more charms than weapons, and he hasn't smiled in weeks. You set out under a sky like unbaked clay, flat, gray, cold. The trees on the horizon look closer than they should be. You try not to look at them too long. There's something in the shape of their shadows that makes you squint and think of old paintings in the wrong kind of temples. By noon, your feet are wet, your shoulder aches from the pack. The air tastes metallic. No one talks. Then someone does. Lucius asks if this path is safe. No one answers. Fabius eventually mutters, "Define safe," then keeps walking. The terrain gets harder. The mud thickens. Brambles snag your cloak. You pass a cluster of stones arranged in a near circle. Clearly not natural. No one mentions it. That night, you camp near an abandoned watchtower. It leans slightly west, like it's listening to something out there. The top is broken, the door half-hinged, The floor inside is cold and hollow. You spread your cloaks around a small fire and eat in silence. Crispus starts muttering halfway through his barley cake. They're listening. You don't ask who. You don't want to know. Later, Fabius tells a story, because of course he does. Saw a man once, years back, tried to leave his post early, slipped out after midnight, left his armor and papers behind, just walked. He pokes at the fire with a stick. Next morning, we found his footprints, straight line, then a second pair beside them, bare feet, smaller, deeper, then nothing, no end, just gone. Lucius laughs too loudly. Fabius doesn't. You take second watch. The wind shifts halfway through, bringing a sound with it, not animal, not human, a low thrum, like someone playing a drum underwater. You freeze, wait, nothing follows, but Crispus won't stop twitching. He keeps glancing over his shoulder. The next day is worse. The trail vanishes under a floodplain. You spend 2 hours slogging through shin-deep water that smells like rot and copper. Lucius slips once and comes up pale, clutching a bundle of reeds shaped disturbingly like fingers. You don't ask. At midday, you reach the marker stone, black, carved with symbols no one recognizes. It wasn't on the map. Fabius spits beside it and mutters a protection charm under his breath. Lucius asks what it means. Means someone buried something here once and didn't want it found. You eat cold rations with your backs to the stone. No one turns around. By the time night falls, you're further out than planned. The last marker is gone. The next tower is missing. Just trees and hills, and something that sounds almost like chanting, but quieter. You camp in a shallow depression. No fire, no talking. Lucius cries in his sleep. Crispus stares at the stars with eyes that don't blink. You lie there, wide awake, one hand gripping your dagger, wondering how deep a person can disappear into the woods before they stop being a person. The final morning, you wake up to find footprints around the camp, small ones, bare. There are no words, just action. You pack faster than ever. You don't eat, you don't breathe, you just leave. By dusk, you see the outer walls of the fort. You've never been happier to smell wet stone and smoke. Back inside, the centurion doesn't ask what happened, just counts you, then frowns. 6 left, still 6. But something's wrong. You notice it when Crispus speaks. His voice is not quite his, not off, just empty. Like someone trying to sound like Crispus, but missing the breath between syllables that night. You lie in your bunk, eyes wide, listening to him sleep. It sounds like breathing, but not like his. And that's when you realize, sometimes, the men don't vanish. Sometimes, they come back wrong. It starts raining before the horn sounds. Not a polite drizzle, not a gentle mist. No. This is the kind of rain that makes you question your life choices. Heavy, punishing, almost personal. Each drop feels like Jupiter himself, flicking water straight into your ear. You pull your cloak tighter around you as you rise from the bunk, already feeling the moisture seeping in from last night. The ceiling of the barracks leaks. It always leaks. There's a puddle forming under someone's cot. You think it's Lucius's, but he's too tired to notice. Or maybe he doesn't care anymore. You step outside into a world that's more mud than earth. The camp is barely recognizable under the downpour. Cloaks flap. Wood groans. Every exposed surface is slick with filth. You hear someone curse as they fall face first into the muck before morning muster even begins. You line up with the others. The centurion appears, soaked from hair to sandals, his expression already saying everything that needs to be said. Today will not be good. He doesn't shout. He just grunts out the new assignments over the roar of the weather. Southern Palisade, repair, shift A, now. That's you. You and 5 others peel off, shovels in hand, shoulders hunched, boots slurping in the dirt as you march toward the edge of camp. The southern palisade is not so much a wall anymore, as it is a series of moistened regrets. Several timbers have collapsed into the drainage trench. The ground beneath is giving way, turning the whole structure into a wooden slide for rainwater and small rodents. It's your job to fix it. You begin digging. The spade bites into the ground, heavy with resistance. Every motion sends water spraying in arcs that hit your face, your neck, your pride. Your boots sink an inch with every step. The man beside you mutters something about this whole fort being cursed, and you're inclined to agree. Your hands go numb before the hour's out. By midday, the rain has not stopped, only evolved into sleet now, biting needles that ricochet off your helmet like tiny insults. You retreat beneath a sagging tarp for a short break, cradling a lump of barley cake and what passes for dried sausage. It's hard, cold, and faintly green. You eat it anyway. Fabius joins you, chewing on what might be a root or might be a piece of leather. "Storm's worse than last year's," he says. "Remember that one? The wind took the roof off the latrine." You nod. "And the latrine with it." He chuckles. "Never saw Felix run that fast again." The brief memory almost warms you. Almost. But then the call goes up from the quartermaster's tent. "Stores!" Everyone groans. You slog over with the others, slipping through puddles and dragging your already heavy legs toward the granary. The door's ajar. Inside, chaos. A barrel of salted fish has split wide open. The grain sacks are leaking from a collapsed ceiling beam. Rats scurry across the floor, feasting like tiny conquerors. The vinegar has spilled across a row of dried figs, creating a pungent, tragic stew. Someone has dropped a bundle of onions and they've begun to sprout, long, pale shoots like arms reaching for freedom. The supply officer stands in the center, arms crossed, a single vein pulsing in his temple. "We're revising rations," he says, trying not to sound like he's weeping inside. "Half portions, starting tomorrow." Half portions again. You take a deep breath through your nose. Regret. You all help clean, sweeping, stacking, salvaging. What's dry is kept. What's damp is dried. What's alive is chased with a boot. There's no time to despair, really. Just motion. And then, as you're dragging a cracked barrel to the compost pile, you hear it. Music. Faint. High-pitched. Not a tune. Exactly. But a series of rising notes. Like a child humming in the dark. You freeze. The others don't seem to notice. You look toward the tree line. Nothing. That night, the barracks are colder than usual. The firewood is damp. The hearth spits and pops. More smoke than flame. You sit wrapped in your cloak, watching the smoke trail toward the rafters, wondering whether the day felt longer than it was, or whether time really does stretch when you're hungry. Cold. And mildly terrified. Crispus hasn't spoken in days. He used to talk in his sleep, muttering, whispering, but now he just lies still, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling like he's waiting for it to open. You can't tell if he sleeps at all. Lucius, still the newest, tries to hum a tune to lift morale. It doesn't work, huh? The storm keeps battering the walls. Wind whistles through the gaps in the timbers. At one point, a shutter slams open, and half the barracks jumps. Gaius gets up to close it. The horn sounds late, not by much, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3, but long enough that the silence starts to feel heavier than usual. Long enough for your heart to do that small, sinking thing it does when something's just slightly off. And out here, even small things feel big. You sit up slowly in your bunk. Everything aches. Your knees crack. Your shoulders hum with dull pain from 3 days of hauling wet lumber. You slept. Technically, but if dreams of drowning in barley sacks count as sleep, then you're becoming a master of it. You glance around the room. The barracks are dim, thick with the scent of damp wool and burned oil. A few of the others are stirring. One still curled up under his cloak, pretending the horn never blew. You don't blame him. Outside, it's worse. The rain has stopped, but the sky still hangs low and swollen, the clouds dragging their gray stomachs across the treetops. The courtyard looks more like a swamp than a military installation. Mud sucks at your sandals with each step. You nearly lose one halfway to roll call. Fewer men this morning. Again, you count. Then count again. One bed was already empty last night. Now there are two. The new recruit, Titus, or maybe Tertius, gone without a trace. No gear left behind. No signs of struggle. Just no longer there. This makes 6. The Centurion doesn't even acknowledge it. He scratches at his wax tablet like he's checking inventory for spoons. Then he reads out assignments in his usual gravel-choked voice. And you brace yourself. You and 3 others are being sent into the lower vaults, the underfort. Just the name is enough to make your stomach tighten. The tunnels beneath the fort are ancient. Parts of them were carved when the fort was first built. Decades ago. Others go back even further, pre-Roman, maybe even tribal. No one knows for sure. No one wants to know for sure. But over the years, the vaults have become a kind of catch-all for anything that doesn't belong topside. Old stores, broken tools, and, depending on who you ask, memories that don't stay buried. Your job, inventory check. The quartermaster wants a full report on what's salvageable down there, which barrels can still be tapped, which crates haven't gone to rot, which weapons might be sharpened back into service. Simple enough. Except you've done this before. And you remember what you heard last time. You gather your things, torch, stylus, tablet, dagger, and head to the old entrance, just behind the grain store. A rusted iron grate guards the stairwell. It's always slightly ajar. No one ever bothers to close it completely. Some say it refuses to stay closed. You'd rather not test that theory. The air shifts the moment you step inside. Above ground, it's damp and cold. Down here, it's still but thick, like walking into a sealed amphora, the kind with something unpleasant inside. The stairs descend at a tight angle. Your boots scrape stone slicked with moss. Behind you, Gaius mutters under his breath. In front, Lucius holds the torch, his knuckles white around the handle. The first chamber is as you remember it. Crates stacked in a half-hearted pyramid. Several collapsed under their own weight. You brush away a sheet of mold and see that one box contains nothing but rusted nails and a single broken sandal. Another holds a pile of javelin shafts, all warped by damp. You mark what's salvageable. The second chamber is worse. Water pools near the back wall. A barrel has burst, spilling what might have been pickled onions. The brine stinks. You gag behind your sleeve and keep moving. Fabius, who somehow got assigned to your group again, finds something in the far corner, a wooden box, intact, sealed with pitch and rope. He runs a hand across the top, then stops. "Do you see that?" he asks, voice low. You look closer. A carving, small, deep, a spiral, etched with care. It's the same symbol you saw 2 weeks ago, painted onto the wall near the latrine. Back then, someone said it was a joke. You're not laughing now. "Don't open it," Lucius says. You all agree without saying it aloud. In the third tunnel, the torch dims. No wind, no movement, just less light, as though something were drinking it from the air. Crispus stayed behind this time. He hasn't been allowed on subterranean duties since his last incident. He came back from the tunnels muttering in Greek, which he doesn't speak, not even a little. You press on, farther down. The tunnel narrows. The air gets colder, but not the kind of cold you expect. It's dry, hollow, like the air in a tomb. You turn a corner and stop. There's a wall, or there should be, but it's gone. A section of stone has crumbled, revealing a room that wasn't on the map. Inside, a circle of stones. 12, maybe 13, blackened at the base. A depression in the center like a fire pit. Or something worse, Gaius whispers. This isn't Roman. You take one step inside. The torch flickers, hard. A gust of air, against all logic, blows inward, not from behind you, from within the room. You freeze. Then a whisper. Not a voice. Just a suggestion of sound. A scrape. A breath. You back out. None of you say anything until you're back in the second chamber. Then, without needing to agree, you head for the stairs. You don't finish the inventory. The centurion doesn't ask why. That night, you sleep with your boots on. The others do. 2. Crispus hums again in the dark. 3 notes. Over and over. Somewhere beneath the floor, you hear scratching. It starts with shouting, not in the dramatic way, no trumpet blaring, no galloping rider returning from some frantic chase, just sudden, wet, ragged yelling from the east watchtower, the kind that makes you instinctively reach for your gladius before your mind has even caught up. You drop the piece of boiled leather you were pretending to repair and sprint. By the time you reach the base of the tower, there's already a crowd, half-dressed, bleary-eyed, boots unlaced and cloaks flapping in the wind. Several men are hauling someone down the stairs. He's not resisting, but he's not exactly cooperating either. Arms limp, legs dragging, mouth open in a wide smile that doesn't touch his eyes. It's Felix. Or it was the last anyone heard. Felix had gone missing from the river outpost nearly 3 weeks ago. Desertion, they said. Typical coward stuff. Maybe he'd wandered off. Maybe he'd run south to warmer provinces, or maybe he'd tried his luck with the local tribes. Whatever happened, he was just another line scratched off the duty slate. But now, here he is, filthy, hollow-eyed, covered in thorn scratches and barefoot despite the frost. He's muttering fast, incomplete phrases, something about roots that drink blood and walls that breathe. He laughs mid-sentence, then chokes, then laughs again. The kind of laugh that makes the hair on your arms rise. It takes 4 men to restrain him. You're one of them. He doesn't fight, but every time he locks eyes with someone, they flinch. It's like he's not looking at you, but through you, right into whatever you're trying not to think about. You drag him into the medicus hut. The surgeon isn't happy. I'm not a priest, he grumbles, wiping his hands on a bloody cloth that probably hasn't been laundered since Augustus. Or an exorcist. Felix is strapped down gently, which is to say with 3 leather belts and a loop of rope around the ankles. His whispering doesn't stop, just changes direction. Now he's saying names of soldiers, including yours. You leave the room. Lucius looks like he's about to cry. Fabius is already halfway through a wineskin. That night, dinner is silent. Even the spoon scrapes feel too loud. Someone brings out a deck of bone-carved gaming tiles, but no one plays. You all just sit by the fire and stare at it like the flames might speak first. Then, just after second bell, the centurion summons you. Not everyone, just a few. The ones who've been here longer than most. The ones who've seen things and learned the value of saying nothing. You're among them now. You gather in the old granary, where the roof only leaks in 2 places instead of 6. There's no formal speech, no ceremony. The centurion simply says, "We need a new overseer." It's not a promotion, not really. More a shift in burden. You'd handle duty rosters, food counts, patrol assignments, sleep rotations. Nothing glamorous. But it comes with privileges, a larger bunk, your own storage chest, and half a flagon of sour wine every 4th night. You hesitate, which is apparently a mistake. The centurion locks eyes with you. You can last here, or you can leave here, he says, very softly. One is slower, and that's the end of it. You say yes. Congratulations. You're now responsible. Your first task? Ration inventory. It's worse than expected. The storm 2 nights ago destroyed half a grain crate. Rats got the rest. What's left? Barley, vinegar, a few wrinkled onions, and a single wheel of cheese that may or may not be alive. You reduce everyone's portions. No one protests. They're too tired. You spend your next morning reviewing guard shifts. Lucius has been at the North Tower for 6 straight nights. That's not ideal. His hands shake now when he eats. You bump him to midday latrine duty instead. Less risk of hallucination, or falling into something you can't climb out of. You assign night watch to Junius instead. He's fresh from a southern post, too enthusiastic, too clean. 2 days later, Junius disappears. No note, no gear, no footprints, just his spear left leaning against the wall. Fabius corners you behind the stables. You sent him out there, he says, voice flat. I didn't send the wind, you reply. Neither of you laughs. You don't sleep well that night. The new bunk is technically better, thicker mattress, fewer drafts, but the silence is worse, too total. You hear things in the stillness, faint scraping, distant humming, sometimes footsteps, not quite outside your door, not quite real. Crispus has started talking in his sleep again, full sentences, but not in Latin. The words sound twisted, folded, backwards. Someone swears they heard the name of a god that doesn't exist. You don't ask. Part of your new duties includes attending the council. You're not sure that's the right word. It's just you, the centurion, and 2 others who look like they've stopped aging altogether. You meet in the unused chapel, the one without icons. They talk about containment, about control, about morale. They mention old stones under the fort, foundations that predate the Republic, rooms no one should enter. Sealed for a reason, one says, tapping his temple. They show you a map, a version of the fort with extra layers, levels below the ones you've seen. Chambers with names like Observation Alcove and Listening Place. You nod. You don't ask questions. You don't want the kind of answers that require silence after later. Back in your bunk, you find a small spiral etched into the wood of your chest. You rub it away with your thumb. It leaves a mark. You tell yourself it's nothing. That week, Fabius disappears. He doesn't take his pack, doesn't clear his cot. Just gone. He leaves a note, folded, precise. You open it with shaking hands. It says, it blinks. That's all. You burn the note, not out of fear, out of routine. It's what you do now. You handle the reports. You cross names off the slate. You redistribute gear. You tell yourself, this is survival. This is what promotion looks like. More wine, warmer cloak, fewer questions. The next morning, Crispus asks for reassignment. Anywhere, he says. Send me to Thrace, Britannia, back to the mines. You shake your head. We need you here. He nods. He understands. He doesn't show up for dinner that night. His bed is neatly made. You scratch another name. You wonder how many more. That night, you hear the whisper again, not from outside, not from under the floor, from inside your head. Not words, not yet, just the sound of something thinking, waiting. You get up, pace, drink vinegar wine. You stare into the mirror-polished gladius blade, and for a second, your reflection blinks before you do. You don't tell anyone, because now you're one of the last, and the last ones always keep the silence. There's a new recruit, and for a brief moment, the entire fort seems to pause, not in awe, not in celebration, but in something closer to quiet confusion. It's been so long since someone new arrived through the front gate that you almost forgot it could happen. Fresh blood, actual paperwork, an assignment letter with an imperial seal, only lightly smudged. That's practically a miracle around here. His name is Marcus. He's tall, upright, too upright. His boots are still black. His armor shines. There's not a scab on his face, not a single sleep-deprived twitch in his eyes. The boy even smells clean. The centurion glances over the letter, shrugs, then nods at you. "Your problem now," he says, and walks off. "You're the overseer. After all, roster assignments, food tallies, rotations, missing persons, and, apparently, breaking in the new meat. You don't say much to Marcus at first. No grand welcome. Just a half-muttered, 'You'll get used to it,' and a wave toward the row of empty bunks in Barracks 3. One of them used to belong to Crispus, or maybe Fabius, or the other one. It's getting harder to keep track. Still, Marcus settles in quickly. First day, he sweeps the stables, hauls firewood, greets the cook with a salve, and gets a confused grunt in return. That night, he joins the meal line and actually thanks the serving ladle for his portion of onion broth. You watch him with a kind of tired curiosity, like studying a bird that's wandered into a lion's den and thinks it's just a warm cave. By the end of day 2, he's humming, actually humming. You hear it while walking past the barracks, some half-remembered tavern tune, cheerful and light, like his soul hasn't yet been wrung out and hung to dry in the rain. By the 3rd day, the humming stops. He starts looking over his shoulder more, doesn't eat as much. One morning, you find him lingering at the eastern wall, staring out toward the mist-choked forest, not on duty, not assigned, just standing there, silent. Expecting someone, you ask. He doesn't turn. There was movement, he says. I think something upright, but too tall. You nod. Don't look too long. You say. He nods back, confused, a bit embarrassed. He's learning. You assign him to firewood duty. It's harmless. A job that keeps the hands busy and the mind too tired to wander. That evening, he eats quietly, stares into his stew, sleeps with his dagger drawn. By day 6, he asks for reassignment. Anything closer to camp, he says. Night watches. Loud. You pause. Loud? I keep hearing something. Whispering, but far away, and not in Latin. You tell him you'll think about it. You don't reassign him. Instead, you post him to the North Tower, standard 4-day rotation. He'll watch the eastern line, log any movement, and ring the bell if something breaks the boundary. It's the same tower Junius disappeared from, and Felix, and Marius before them. You don't tell Marcus that. The first night, he reports nothing. 1 owl, 2 flashes of lightning, minor wind damage on the rampart. Second night, his report is more hesitant. Saw a light like a torch, but it moved too fast, disappeared into the woods. By the 3rd night, he doesn't file anything. You climb the tower to check on him. He's awake, eyes wide. His hands are trembling. Do you remember the silence before this place? He asks. You don't answer. You just walk him down, 1 step at a time, until he's seated by the fire. He doesn't sleep that night. You don't assign him again. The next morning, he's gone. No fight, no farewell, no note. Just his boots by his cot, neatly lined up, pointing toward the door. You log it in the slate. Name, Marcus. Rank, legionary. Status, withdrawn. Reason, unknown. Last words. Do you remember the silence? Later that day, you hold your weekly meeting in the chapel. You're joined by the centurion, the medicus, and a builder named Drusus who rarely speaks unless asked. The old map is unrolled again, with its spiraling passages and faded warnings inked in red. There's a vote, whether to send another team below. The foundation beneath the northeast quarter is shifting again. That's how it always starts, with a creak in the floorboards, a faint bowing in the walls, then a smell. The smell always comes last. You're the only one who's gone that deep and come back. The centurion says to you, you nod, you don't argue. That night, you prepare. You sleep with your gear packed. You light no fire. You eat bread dipped in oil and drink wine that tastes faintly of metal. Before dawn, you descend again. The tunnel mouth is as you left it, dark, damp, waiting. You enter alone this time, torch lit, dagger sheathed, steps slow. The air changes after the third turn, becomes thicker, not foul, not sweet, just dense, like walking into memory. You see the spiral mark again, faintly glowing on a stone. You pass crates untouched for decades, rusted blades, bones, a helmet with a dent in it deep enough to reach your palm, and then the vault, the third one, the one below the foundations. It's different now, wider. You didn't hear any digging. You didn't feel any change. But the chamber is larger. It echoes in ways it didn't before. In the center is the amphora, still unbroken. You kneel. You open it. Inside is another scroll. Not just your name this time, all of them. Every soldier, every scribe, every recruit. Some names crossed out, some circled, some underlined twice. And at the bottom, 2 new ones, Marcus and yours. You close the scroll. You return to the surface. You do not speak. You reassign duties. You mend your cloak. You sharpen your gladius even though it hasn't seen combat in months. You write Marcus's name again in the ledger, even though you already did, just to be sure. That night, the wind picks up. It howls through the chimneys. And somewhere in the walls, something howls back. You sleep lightly, dreamlessly. The fort does not rest. Neither do you. You wake before the horn. That happens more often now, not from nightmares, those stopped weeks ago. Not from sounds, though sometimes there's a soft scraping beneath your cot, like someone carving circles into the stone with a nail. No, it's silence that wakes you. That strange, dense, swallowing kind of silence, the kind that makes you sit up and look around, not because you heard something, but because you didn't. The others stir slowly. There are fewer of them now. Of course there are. You've stopped pretending it surprises you. The barracks smell like oil, wet leather, and fatigue. You pull on your cloak, stiff with dried rain, and tighten your belt. Outside, the air is still. Thick mist clings low to the ground, curling around boots and barrels like it has a mind of its own. The torches lining the inner wall hiss as they burn. A crow caws once from somewhere above the gate, and then never again. Roll call is quiet. You read the names, even though you know which ones will echo back with nothing. Some men don't even answer anymore. They just raise a hand. That's enough. No one cares about ceremony out here. Just existence. Just breath. The centurion doesn't speak today. He doesn't have to. You know the schedule. Another rotation. Another descent. They've started assigning listening detail. It's not written that way. On the slate. It just says maintenance inspection, sub-level 3. But everyone knows what it really means. You go down, you wait, you listen. Today, it's your turn again. You don't protest. You pack a small kit, wax tablet, 2 torches, a satchel of flatbread, a knife with a cracked handle. You don't take a shield. It won't help. Lucius watches you go. He doesn't say goodbye, just nods once like you're walking into the rain and will be back when you dry off. You descend, this time. The steps feel steeper, the air thickens sooner. The stone has changed again. Subtle shifts. One of the wall joints you marked last week has disappeared entirely. In its place is a smooth curve, as if time is sanding the place down behind you. You light the torch. You count your breaths. You reach the third sublevel. The spiral is waiting, not drawn, not etched, not carved, just waiting, in the shape of the hallway, in the layout of the rooms, in the way the dust moves when you walk. The amphora is gone. In its place, a mirror, a metal plate, polished, standing upright on a stone plinth that wasn't there yesterday. You see yourself, not just your face, your shape, your eyes, your thoughts. You blink, and your reflection doesn't. You don't run. You stare back, and your reflection smiles. Not with teeth, not with malice, just a slow, tired, understanding kind of smile, like it's seen every moment of your life, and it forgives you for all of it. You touch the mirror. It's warm. You whisper your name. No echo, just quiet. Then something changes. Behind you, movement. You turn, fast, torch up, knife ready, no one. You exhale, then you hear it, a whisper from the wall, not in Latin, not in Greek, something older, a word you don't know, but you understand it. You nod, and then, somehow, you're back, above ground, in your bunk, boots still on, torch still in hand, but unlit. No memory of walking back, no mud on your soles, no smell of ash. You sit up, you check your satchel. The bread is gone, in its place. A folded note, one word, written in charcoal. Stay. You burn it, you report for duty. The centurion doesn't ask what you saw. He doesn't need to. You're assigned a new task. Train the next recruit. Yes, there will be another. You know that now. The fort breathes, it hungers, it waits. And you? You're part of it, not broken, not gone, just changed. Like the walls, like the spiral, like the silence. You spend your days counting names, assigning shifts, replacing the oil in the lamps that never seem to run dry. At night, you stand by the eastern wall and look out at the mist, waiting for the next figure to arrive. You hope they're polite. You hope they hum. You hope they last at least 4 days. You sharpen your dagger anyway. The fort does not sleep, but now it dreams. And you, faithful watcher, are its eyelid. So now, as the last echoes of boots fade into the mist and the silence of the fort returns to its waiting breath, you let yourself relax. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the weight of all those stone walls lift off your back. The air becomes still again, soft and slow, the kind that wraps around you like a woolen cloak warmed by firelight. That cold watchtower with its flickering torches, it's behind you now. That spiral carved in the stone, just a story, just dust, the strange names, the quiet disappearances, the sounds under the floor. They drift further and further away with each breath. You are not underground anymore. You are here, warm, safe, held by stillness. Let the dark fog roll gently past your mind like slow clouds over a forgotten forest. Let the flicker of torchlight melt into a low golden glow behind your eyes. The names you've heard, the stairs you've climbed, the weight you've carried. It can all rest now. Even ancient forts need stillness. And you? You've made it. You endured every shadow, every whisper, every impossible thing beneath the stone, and you're still here. Breathe deeper now, softer. Let that quiet hum of the background carry you. Let the rain tap faintly on the roof of your mind. Let the candle melt down to nothing. The fort is at peace, and so are you. End of story. Sweet dreams.